video, I talked about my experience being laid off from a startup, and one of the most received comments I had from my friends were, "How did you find a job so fast?" I ended up with 3 offers within 2 months of being laid off, where one offer was a full-time contract position at Amazon, and 2 were at medium-sized tech companies, where these 2 offers were both ones I would have been so happy to take when I was initially leaving Amazon in 2021. So I'm about to share with you all of my tips on how I got there, and this is part 1 of my 2-part series, where part 2 will be on how to ace that interview in this layoff apocalypse and comp negotiations. Make sure you subscribe to know when that one comes out, and let's get started. My first tip is explore becoming a contractor. Alright, this first tip is actually something I found out totally by accident. One of the first things I did when I got laid off was to reach out to my previous manager in my last company for a full-time position. That's obvious, right? But when I found out that there was no full-time positions available, it didn't click for me that my company used to hire contractors in the org who basically did the same things that we did, got paid more, and just didn't get the typical employee benefits. Even with the millions of hiring freezes happening, contractors are not impacted in the same way because they're not budgeted the same way. It's a lower risk for a company to keep contractors because, well, first, it's short term, although it could be up to a year and, you can get extended. And second, when it comes time to terminate, there's no need to worry about severance. So the first step is to reach out to your existing connections in companies that have the types of positions you're looking for, then get information from them on whether there is a consulting firm they contract out to, and apply to that consulting firm instead. Getting a contractor position could really buy you some valuable time as a way to ride out the recession and get paid, or be ready to convert to full-time whenever the hiring freezes thaw, since contractor conversions can be favored over recruiting from scratch. Go beyond your career niche. First, do not panic apply. Applying to a massive number of jobs with the same resume can really hurt your chances of getting screened out by ATS or getting passed by a recruiter. You should, however, cast a wide net and consider stepping out of your career niche. In this economy, finding the perfect match for your experience is near impossible. So you really want to learn to package yourself well to step out of your niche and expand the roles you can be qualified for. What I mean by this is that you should apply to roles where you might not check all the boxes but have strong tangential experience for. This means stepping back and look at the cumulative transferable skills and experiences you've had in the past several years and think about how you can use that to extend outside of your current niche. For example, if you built a dashboard for just 1 or 2 projects before, but learned a ton about data analytics and Tableau, for example, make sure you're actively considering this skill as you're browsing the job market. If a role comes up where one of the primary responsibilities is data analytics, or something else you only have tangential experience in, go for it, even if it's not something you did on a daily basis. Going through this exercise of looking at your major deliverables line by line and tracking all your technical and transferable skills will really allow you to cast a wide but effective net when you're job searching. Have multiple resumes. In the same vein as extending beyond your current niche, have multiple resumes for the different types of roles you're applying for. The first reason is if you might want to do a career pivot. In a job market with slim pickings, it might be needed to consider multiple types of roles that are kind of related. When I was applying to jobs, even though my main experience had been program management, I had worked cross-functionally with product quite often, and so I thought, screw it, let me apply to some product manager roles. And so I tailored my resume to focus more on my product interactions for each of my positions and sent this version of my resume out to a few product roles where I was actually able to get some callbacks. Ultimately, I didn't end up going through with the product roles, even though one of them had invited me on for a full loop, because that just wasn't the direction I wanted to take my career. But there's definitely value in tailoring your resume to different types of roles. The second reason of having multiple resumes is to optimize for ATS. You want to be including keywords from the job descriptions into your resume so that it could get picked up by the ATS, which increases your chances of getting a recruiter's eyes on it. Aside from that, the universal rules for optimizing your resumes for ATS include, number 1, avoid graphics. They're not necessary, especially if you're not in the creative field, and never really add a whole ton of value to what you're presenting. Number 2, avoid columns. I've read that they could really mess with how ATS reads the actual text of your resume. Number 3, avoid rating your skills. It seems pretentious to rate yourself 5 stars on everything, But you also don't want to be showing that you're anything less than a 5-star on a scale that you are choosing to list on your resume. So I would stay away from it. Hustle and keep a schedule. With either a Google Sheet or an efficiency tool of your choice, keep track of the jobs you're applying for and include which stage you are in for each job. Now, personally, I would only do this for jobs that I already received an initial recruiter reach out for. This is so that I can follow up and avoid a situation where I haven't even had the hiring manager round for a dream job yet, but already I'm about to finish a full loop for another role. Seeing all of this mapped out visually will really allow you to follow up with a recruiter on a timely basis and schedule things out in a timeline that makes sense for you. My next tip is think about joining a startup. The reality is most of the medium and large size tech companies that you consider stable are probably having a hiring freeze right now. But there are definitely still startups that are hiring, and depending on your risk appetite, where you're in life, and how urgently you want to find a job, it might be a good time to explore this option. However, you have to consider how recession-proof the industry that startup is in. So here's what I would stay away from. Crypto. Crypto is deep in crypto winter, and we don't need to say much more on that. Real estate and mortgage industry. Rising interest rates and high prices from 2021 meant transaction volumes fell off a cliff. This is a crowded field that's now fighting for a pie that's a fraction of what it was in 2021. And ad tech. How will this startup differentiate itself from Meta, Google, Pinterest, Snap, and who are all giving really dire projections? On the other hand, the more recession-proof industries, in my opinion, are logistics, health, or biotech. Most B2B SaaS companies are actually also generally more recession-proof since it's a lot easier for consumers to shift spending habits than businesses. If you get to an offer stage for a startup, it's really important to ask about their runway, their exit strategy, or growth plan to the next round of fundraising. A stable, solid startup without the big red flags should be able to share a lot of that information with you. Having spoken to a few different startups and having joined one myself, around the same time a partner also joined one, we both have learned a ton about how to evaluate startups, and so if you have any more questions on this, please leave a comment below. My next tip is set up the right alerts on the right platforms. First, the platforms. Now, when an employer posts an ad on their corporate career page, it could propagate to a ton of small niche sites as well as the major job boards. Don't waste your time on the niche sites, but make sure you're setting up alerts on LinkedIn and Google Careers. I personally found LinkedIn to have had a more timely and frequent result update, but to each their own. In terms of setting up alerts, because each company names their disciplines and positions slightly differently, I would set up an alert for different variations of what you're looking for. For example, if you're a technical program manager, you might want to set up keywords for program manager, senior technical program manager, senior program manager, so you can capture openings in all the relevant companies when they come up. The job descriptions and comp could be exactly what you're looking for in two different companies, but they could just have two slightly different titles that may not be captured if you set up an alert with just one variation. There you have it. These are my top tips for getting an interview during this layoff market. Please hit the subscribe button to stay tuned for part 2 of my video where I will talk about my top tips for job interviews in this layoff apocalypse, as well as how to do comp negotiations. Yes, you can still negotiate comp in this crazy time. If you found this video helpful, please leave a comment below on any other questions you have, and I'm sending you all good vibes in this horrendous economy. You're not alone. I'll see you next time.